There is a very specific kind of quiet that happens in a room when someone has decided to withdraw their love. It doesn't feel peaceful. It feels thick, heavy, like all the oxygen has been slowly drained out of the space, leaving you gasping for air while the other person breathes just fine. You know the feeling. You ask if they are okay, and they give you a flat, one-word answer, or say nothing at all. They look right through you, as if the space you occupy is entirely empty. You replay the last 24 hours in your head, desperately searching for the exact moment you ruined everything. You analyze the tone of your voice or the way you close the car door. You become an emotional detective, gathering clues to solve a crime you aren't sure you committed. By the second day of this deafening quiet, you are so flooded with anxiety that you no longer care who was right or wrong. You just want the warmth back. You want the tension to snap. So, you fold. You apologize for things you didn't do. You take the blame. You make yourself small just to hear them speak your name again. We often tell ourselves that the other person just needs some space. We rationalize it to make it hurt less. We think they are just processing or they aren't good with words. But there is a massive, life-altering difference between taking a healthy moment to cool down and using the silent treatment. A healthy cool down is about self-regulation. The silent treatment is about control. It is a calculated behavioral trap, and it works incredibly well, especially if you are someone who is already wired to be the peacemaker. This tactic usually preys on the part of us that falls into the chronic overgiver trap. The person who believes that being excessively good means buying emotional safety. Maybe you know this version of yourself well. You are the one who always says yes to every favor, terrified of letting anyone down. I remember a time when I fell right into this pattern. A friend asked for help moving, and I stayed up all night hauling boxes and scrubbing floors, completely ignoring my own exhaustion. I drained myself to make their life easier, hoping it would cement my value. But the next morning, body aching from lack of sleep, I opened my phone to see them posting stories at a lively brunch, completely unbothered, while I spent the day recovering in bed. I felt used. I felt incredibly foolish. But I didn't say a single word because the people pleaser in me was terrified that speaking up would make me the bad guy. I swallowed my resentment to keep a peace that didn't actually exist. That exact same terror of being the bad guy is what the silent treatment exploits. I remember an argument I had a few years ago in a relationship. It started over a simple misunderstanding about weekend plans. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything cruel. But the response I received was a complete, devastating withdrawal. For 3 straight days, I was locked out. I would walk into the kitchen, and they would leave the room. I would ask a question and get the back of their head. The first day, I stood my ground. I knew I hadn't done anything terrible. But by the second day, the silence started to rot my confidence. I felt like a ghost haunting my own house. The worst part is that your mind starts filling in the blanks. Because they aren't telling you what's wrong, your brain supplies the absolute worst-case scenarios. I convinced myself I was fundamentally toxic. I convinced myself they were packing their bags in their mind. By day 3, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, practically begging for a conversation, taking 100% of the blame for a conflict that belonged to both of us. When we are on the receiving end of this, we aren't just reacting to a quiet room. We are reacting to a psychological erasure. The silent treatment communicates a very specific, very painful message. Your presence is so worthless. Your feelings are so invalid that I do not even need to acknowledge your existence. It attacks our most primitive human fear, the fear of abandonment. When someone we love looks away and refuses to see us, our nervous system registers it as a literal threat to our survival. We equate silence with the withdrawal of safety. And the cruelest part of this dynamic is that it forces the victim to do the emotional labor for both people. You have to regulate your own rising panic while simultaneously trying to manage and soothe their unstated anger. It is entirely exhausting. Let's look at how healthy boundaries compare to this manipulation. When someone genuinely needs space to calm down, they take responsibility for that need. They say something like, "I am too angry to talk right now. I need a few hours, but we will figure this out later." A healthy cooldown has an end date. It provides a bridge of reassurance, even in the middle of a conflict. The silent treatment has no end date. It is deliberately open-ended to maximize your distress. It is not about protecting the relationship from angry words. It is about punishing you until you submit. It is a way of forcing you to abandon your own reality so that you can adopt theirs. You see this pattern in so many places once you know what to look for. It's the parent who doesn't yell, but instead clatters the dishes aggressively in the sink, refusing to make eye contact, making you walk on eggshells around the kitchen until you guess what chore you forgot to do. It's the coworker who sighs heavily and ignores your emails for 2 days just because you politely push back on an unrealistic deadline. The tactic is exactly the same. They make their emotions your responsibility without ever using their words. If you have spent your life folding yourself in half to end these uncomfortable silences, I need you to hear something clearly. You are not weak for breaking down. You are not pathetic for apologizing when you didn't do anything wrong. Your nervous system is beautifully wired for connection. Someone you cared about found the button that controls your deepest fear of abandonment, and they pressed it, holding it down until you broke. You were not failing at relationships. You were starving. You were reacting to emotional starvation in the only way you knew how to survive. There is a moment in healing where you realize you cannot cure a dynamic by participating in the dysfunction. You have to step out of the dance entirely. The next time I faced that heavy, punishing silence in a relationship, I decided to do something terrifying. I decided to let them be silent. I realized that my desperate attempts to pull them out of their mood were actually rewarding their behavior. I was teaching them that silence was the most effective way to break my boundaries. I had to change my response. Instead of asking what was wrong for the 10th time, I looked at them and delivered a very calm, very short boundary. I said, "I can see that you are upset and you aren't ready to talk. I am going to give you space. I am ready to listen when you want to have a respectful conversation." And then I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I physically left the room. I did not hover in the doorway. I did not text them 20 minutes later to check the temperature of their mood. I went for a walk and made myself a meal. I took back the control of my own emotional state. Setting boundaries like this, especially if you are recovering from that overgiving, people-pleasing trap, requires you to radically change how you speak. We often think setting a boundary means we must be aggressive or write an essay defending our right to exist. You don't. The most powerful boundaries are composed of short, neutral sentences. The less you explain, the less room there is for them to argue. This works exactly the same way when saying no to someone consuming your energy. Think back to that friend with the moving boxes. Instead of silently suffering and building a mountain of resentment, you can learn to say no without declaring war. You can offer a boundary paired with an alternative. You can simply say, "I can't come over and pack tonight, but I can bring you dinner tomorrow when you are settling in." You offer a choice that works for your bandwidth, and you leave it at that. If they are disappointed, let them be disappointed. You do not have to absorb their disappointment into your own body. Learning to tolerate someone else's displeasure is the necessary price of admission for a peaceful life. It is deeply uncomfortable at first. Your brain will scream at you to fix the tension, to apologize for breathing, to break the quiet at any cost. Let it scream. Let the silence hang in the air. Let them sit in the discomfort of their own unregulated emotions. You are not a lightning rod for their unresolved anger. You do not have to be the buffer between them and the world. Once you stop filling their silent treatment with your panic, you strip it of all its power. It just becomes what it actually is, a quiet room. And you will be surprised to find that eventually, you can breathe in that quiet. You can find your own center there. You can finally stop waiting for someone else to grant you permission to speak and simply start listening to yourself.
You're doing great.